bit of a crime. It's like I'm emotional for Boston. I mean, okay, you did a crime. As long as it's say your, right your. And you know what? That's it. Nobody will talk about it. After so many years, he came out and it's Mama Shagula. Your job or your walk? Your exercise?
Today?
No, in general.
Generally exercise.
You walk or you run?
I do a Peloton.
Oh, Peloton. Amazing machine, huh?
It's very, very good. I go to spin classes also. I just haven't gone in a while because I haven't Peloton.
But the Peloton bicycle or the trail?
Bicycle.
It's amazing how you
go
talk to
biking?
Huh?
You go biking?
Biking, spin classes. I do a lot of spin classes.
Where do you bike?
Go to the park if I have time. I'll take the bike to the park.
We have it in Miami.
Peloton is a spin bike in the house. Transmits by the internet classes to you on a big screen.
And he talks to you. Almost like a guy talks to you.
So, no, I try to go biking once a week.
Where do you go?
Dozens and dozens of beautiful, beautiful paved trails around here.
The rail trails?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
There are many, many places.
Okay, tell me three.
Okay, there is in New Jersey a string of about 7 parks along a little river. It starts in Ridgewood and ends in Rochelle.
They're all attached to each other.
There is a paved walking and biking path there.
Yeah, I know the one in Ridgeway.
6.5 miles long.
Yeah.
And every time it comes to a road,
Yeah.
it goes under.
So you're able to continue. You're able to continue.
It's very inferior, very small hills.
Right.
It's very pleasant, changes all the time, and it's beautiful.
Okay. Where else do you go?
And then take here, for example, Congress Lake.
It's a walking trail around Congress Lake. You can bike around Congress Lake
Right,
also.
Bike also.
Yeah.
They have
Bring us a
2.4 mile loop around.
I'm sorry, I cleaned it, but I
2.4 miles
didn't come to jail.
and people bike there also.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
I was,
But the third of it
massive.
is boardwalk
Okay.
over the
It's
water.
like a pig style here.
Yeah.
Not that many
A lot goes on over there.
Huh?
A lot goes on over there.
No, the guy left a cell phone, there was a chicken, it was like,
Sparkhill.
it's like a homeless shelter here.
Blauvelt to Sparkhill is about 3.5 miles.
How do you find it? Just online? On the internet?
Well, I have a friend who's been doing it for years.
Oh, really? See, you go with him.
We have a third person, he had a stroke, and he cannot really walk too well.
But he can bike.
He can use one leg to bike. He has like a tricycle.
You have a regular bike? You have a road bike you bike with?
I have a hybrid bike.
A hybrid.
Good
I
to hire.
just feel it's essential for my health to go, you know.
Cardiologist's not going to argue with you.
There is it's a trail that's about 15 miles.
Which one?
In Monroe.
Oh, Monroe, yeah, the Heritage Trail between Goshen and Middletown. Chester.
What's the drug there?
They extended on. When they first started, it was all scary. There was some crime on that trail when they first started. People walk a lot on it also.
And now
You only saw biking? People walk the Heritage Trail.
People
Walking, yeah. People walking on
They
it.
have, a lot of summer people there.
And where do you bike?
I try to go to Harriman Park, but I haven't gone the whole summer. I haven't had a
Which
chance
park?
to. Harriman up here, it's a Harriman.
On the roads there.
On the roads. I mean, I like the
go there all the time to Kawanuku
Lake, yeah, Kawanuku. I like when it's not flat.
Yeah.
I like when it's steep hills.
You were supposed
You
to
walk
make
on
a battery?
Kawanuku Circle, and you follow the road, it goes all the way down, it crosses throughway,
Yeah.
and there's a little park there.
Where Kawanaki Circle goes where?
Marcia, you're too young for this. You're too young for that. To do bicycle.
loving
It
it.
crosses
Huh?
not the
I'm loving it.
17, you mean? It crosses 17, you mean?
My nephew started from nothing and he does 100, does a life, something that's going
High
on.
life line?
Yeah, 150 miles this coming up.
That's
came from
doing-
Konitz
it's a
here.
huge steep
I-
incline.
Me, and then from me you went to Montezuma.
About
I like the
15
And
minutes
back.
downhill.
I like it.
Yeah.
I used to love bikes.
When
I have
do you
that
go?
fear that,
Sunday?
shoot, somebody's gonna
If I have a chance, I go on. I haven't gone this whole summer.
There's a lot of people have
I usually go on
accidents
Sundays.
on the road.
Sometimes if I have nothing in the morning,
Especially
I'll go
today
very
with
early in the
cell
morning,
phones,
5:30.
they're
But usually I
so
can't because of
busy,
work.
you
It's
know.
So
too
Ruben
much time.
he stopped.
So
He used to ride a motorcycle. The guy sits here. He stopped because he said
Well, I can't go
all
on
the texting.
My wife's brother,
Yeah, I can't go. I also don't like doing
he
that.
had not
I'll go
100,
with
he had
you.
maybe 20 bicycles, motorcycle. He has a pin.
Yeah,
Standing
but
at
they
the
also
red
they're
light.
used to
Or maybe
bikers.
he don't want
They
to
expect the
he's not
bikers
driving.
Yeah.
on the
He
regular
has a pin
roads.
for the rest of his life.
The cars
Every
thing,
time
the
there's a
road
bad weather,
belongs
he
to us.
leaves.
Over there, they know.
Still rides?
The only thing what I don't like there is not the cars, it's the motorcycles. Not the
47, 45. Like alternation.
I'll go
When
with
it
you
gets
once.
cold, he limps.
If you want to go,
He has
I'll go with you once.
a aluminum pin. But the new bikes with the little stickle battery, so you know if you want to take a break, the battery
Road,
you know.
you know, Lake Tiorati.
Miami I was going to do it, but I also because Miami motorcycles don't even have a helmet.
Yeah, there's no law.
No law.
Crazy, you gotta be crazy.
He's saying if you get hit, die,
Yeah, I
better
know
die
which one. The
than
one that
being a
goes by
paralyzed.
goes all the way
That's
and
a great-
it hooks
a
up
great-
later with
It's a
great way to get on the bike.
The wheel in the air. I said, listen, I'd rather have a convertible already for one.
You don't have that much hair. That's what I'm saying.
Then there's the one that goes by that
Once
old church
sold-
and cemetery. There's the one
Drop
over
a
there.
convertible, you
Yeah,
have the same effect.
Yeah, but that's
And 100 times
yeah.
safer.
No, he's not
But
the
nice,
same
yeah.
road.
I
I'm
was
not
up,
sure
I
which
went
road you're talking about. I've been on many of them.
yesterday to
Lake Tiorati has a
Brooklyn,
circle.
Yeah, it's a circle. It's a roundabout.
They have the three-wheeler
And
motorcycle with the
lights.
stereo, with the speakers,
Right,
and like
branch
the
off,
little.
right.
It came so
And
the driving
if you
was little
just go
motorcycle,
straight,
two
you
wheelers,
end up
Yeah.
buying,
big speakers, like I saw maybe
Palisades.
five or
right,
six
right.
of them through the
If you
day.
go
Really?
right, you also end up by the Palisades.
Still no protection
No.
between you and the road and you and the other cars.
Down and enormous
You saw
lot.
yesterday it was a huge accident. It's a Royal tractor
Lake
trailer.
Welch.
Like Welch, you
Where?
know that road.
There's a Royal tractor trailer. Talking on the phone, the tractor trailer on the highway.
Somebody posted
And
that there was a
then at 11
huge motor
o'clock,
vehicle accident yesterday,
This is what
17
I'm
feet,
speaking
two
about,
dead on
that
arrival or
takes you
something.
to Harriman,
Oh, I don't know.
to Route
I mean,
17.
The 9 days
I've
is
been on many of
Mama's.
those roads already.
It's
That
Mama's.
road
It was a
has
It's
a
in
hairpin
Israel.
curve, just like this,
Wow.
just like in the Alps. You know.
Mama's.
In Israel. What? In Israel? Tuna? Huge tuna. Where is it?
When we go,
I went to Jerusalem.
Terrible. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Three
yeah.
cars.
I just watched a clip with the Rabbi yesterday, where the lady asked
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a
yeah.
bracha for the motor, for
Oh, yeah,
less
right.
accidents. He
Right.
said, put some
He says,
sperm in your car and it's a tzedakah box.
listen,
Upland Lake
in
is very
1980s,
I don't like it when it's so flat, though.
I'm a Canadian, so I have a Canadian license plate. I brought the car from Montreal,
No.
1980. And I
These
parked it on the Empire Boulevard in Fort Heights. And there was a
Hard to ride out
windy,
there. Hard to-
windy,
it's hard to
like
ride
a
out
burger,
there.
Why?
hamburgers.
People want
Windy,
it.
McDonald's.
Wendy's,
Wendy's,
yeah.
It was closed, so I have free parking. So I'm taking the train with my wife to Manhattan, and I used it as a free
Oh, it's
parking.
only Mountain
Because-
State Park.
So
Yeah.
this, where I park it, I can take a D train straight to 57th Street.
Is there a bike
And
trail?
take it to a train.
I think there's a bike
I'm
trail.
coming
yeah.
back, the whole, somebody insures you, burned the
Boy, I
whole
see a
place.
friend
My
really
whole
takes
car
you to
got
fun
burned.
places.
To the crisp. The glove department, where the Tanya.
I usually go with
Killer,
him.
Cider, nothing. Nothing got burned. Nothing got burned. I mean, this is, I'm a living proof. I mean, it's crazy.
In New Jersey.
I mean, the insurers give me a hard time that I kept the car more than 6 months, but those days was no easy pass.
To move, you mean? You weren't living in Canada anymore, you say?
No, I live in Canada.
We used to go all the way
I
up
got married in
to,
1980, so
near
I
New
was
Falls.
here. Insurers
There's a
was
rail
supposed to
trail
book this.
there for like
New
a
York was a
long rail
killer.
trail in New Falls.
I
And we
was
used to go up
I was 20
to.
years old, but a little bishop.
Way over the Hudson.
I didn't want to
No,
change the insurance.
that wasn't even there yet.
And I like to have
We
one
used to
plate.
go to
I hate
what's called
to
the
have
Shongun
plates in the
Mountains,
front. It's sticky.
Minnewaska State Park.
How old when you got married?
We used to
I was
bike
a
in
month-
Minnewaska
a month
State
before I was
Park.
born.
Gorgeous there in New York.
Used to bike it. We used to bike the trails in Minnewaska like that.
Oh boy.
The walkway.
Who's on your car keys?
Oh boy.
Oh, you can't find your car keys? Oh, yeah.
It's gewaltig.
So maybe we'll do it
That's
for
a
your
send
It's
out.
phone.
great. That's great.
We'll do it from your phone.
Israel, you have a link to the mimer or no? Yeah, because it's locked up. Yeah, so you can send it in. Better not. Unless you want to do something else.
Who else is coming? Nobody else? dedicated
On the
meeting.
site we have to
He's gonna send that link.
Yeah, excuse me?
have a key for that. Rabbi has.
Oh, is it? We can't find it.
Where do you take spin classes?
Oh, you just posted it?
Yeah, he posted
Oh,
it.
it's posted. Okay. Look online, you just posted it.
I haven't. I have to look.
Ah, you have really.
Get my copy. I chazer at night.
Look it online. What? Nah, no, forget it. See, I got it online.
They're in here and the keys are
Who has the key?
Is Usher Bennett have a key?
No.
Can't find his car key.
I'll find his car key.
You just email us online.
Should have kept
Oh,
one.
okay,
You know
you
what?
wanna
Go to it. Next time we should have kept a spare.
Online and WhatsApp or?
You know, they should Jacobson shit.
Question? Where the copies are? In there.
Look at your phone. On the phone.
Page test.
Good morning, everybody.
No, when you said the site, it means on the
Shoot. We have a Jacobson shoot.
on the WhatsApp. The WhatsApp group, yeah.
You can go to the yeshiva.net, any of the shiurim, and the PDF is there. You don't need the WhatsApp.
Test?
Test.
Page test.
I can't find test either.
Because it's in booklet form, so you just have to like scroll around.
I'm missing somebody took test.
No, it's just in booklet form.
Hold on, so the senior citizen we need will help. If you have a hard time to find that, we cannot find it. Moisture is looking for that.
One more page, I think.
One more custom.
It's near the bottom. Here, it's right
Page test there. After I meet those.
Vihine.
Yeah, right before that, 3 lines up. After I meet those. Mem lamed yered asay chalad.
Umalchus. Umalchus. Okay, everybody has access to it. Vihine. Page test to paragraph. Vihine.
4 lines down.
Yeah. Not 4 lines. From the bottom, you'll see a new paragraph starts Vihine.
Oh, we got it.
Vihine. In be'emtza hashpas harav. You have WhatsApp?
No, but you have the show
You can go to the yeshiva.net, it's there too. Any of the shiurim has the PDF.
It doesn't work this way.
Good morning, everybody. We're up to page Tes, the second paragraph, in the middle of the page, below, lower part of the page. It starts Vihine. After exploring in detail the beginning of the mashal, the beginning of the parable of the mentor and the student, explaining first about all of the steps of preparation that are necessary for the communication and for the teaching and for the mentorship. And then moving on to explain the fact that despite all the preparations, there is something that happens often during the teaching that cannot be prepared earlier, and even with all the preparations from before, this cannot be arranged or organized before, and that is the creativity, the unleashing of new insights and new ideas that occurs during the relationship, during the communication. One reason may be because of the speech, the power of speech to verbalize and articulate and differentiate and categorize, which unleashes and reveals new depth from the teacher. Another reason may be because of the actual dynamic, experiencing the resistance or the inability of the words to go in and the words recoiling back. Because when there's the encounter between those two forces, the deep yearning of the teacher to give and the difficulty or the inability of the student to receive. So even if he prepared yesterday everything and he restricted it, but nonetheless, you can't compare that to the awareness which is created as a result of the actual teaching, when he sees the face of the student and his desire that he absorb the material collides or comes together with the difficulty for the student to absorb, and it evokes, it triggers, it arouses within the teacher new ideas, that which he didn't prepare, or a new language, or new illustrations, or new explanations, or new insights, or a new way of saying it. And in a way that bouncing back, as he calls it, the rebound, the archaizer, goes to a much deeper place, especially if he asks questions, like the story with Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. And finally, the third idea of notes, tchilasan b'saifan, that when the ultimate purpose of all the ideas comes to fruition, and it leaves the world of the mashpi and it enters into the world of the makabel, the notes, tchilasan b'saifan, that saifan causes the teacher to, in many ways, to be reborn. Something new is created inside of him. He finds himself, he finds those ideas in a new way, in a way that he could not prepare for when it was still in his own world. Those are the three explanations of why, in middle of a shir, new ideas may come out. V'hinei im be'emtza hashpa'as harav, shedoirish lefnei mekabel kazeh shenikra talmid muvik. If in middle of the hashpah, in middle of the mentorship, the teaching of the teacher who is expounding doirish, he's expounding the ideas in front of a mekabel, in front of a student, who's called a talmid muvik. What's pshat a talmid muvik? We said before that there's two types of talmidim. There is the talmid who receives according to his kalim, according to his vessels, according to his faculties. No two people receive in the same way. Everyone has their own vessels, their own way of receiving. The talmid muvik he defined as somebody who's a cholol reikon mamish. It's completely open. There's a complete openness because of a profound yearning not to lose, not to forfeit even one word, even one insight. He empties himself from everything else. There's no other agendas, there's no other interests, there's no other interferences. The Talmud Muvik means that his whole essence becomes a Talmud. That's who he is. He defines himself that way. That's his pride. That's his joy. Obviously, for this, there has to be a lot of trust, a lot of willingness. But that becomes his identity. He calls him a Chalal Reikon Mamish in the earlier chapter, on the previous page. Chalal Reikon Mamish means Mamish like an open womb that's empty from anything else, and he will not allow himself to lose even one word. And therefore he allows every drush, as he puts it, every shir, to rebuild him. Just as the teacher is there fully in all the 10 faculties as discussed, he also shows up in all of his 10 faculties. He allows it to rebuild his insight and his ava and his yira and his avoida and his hanhaga on every level as discussed. So he said, this Talmud Muvik, as he is receiving the shir, shehu makabel chiyus midivrei harav, who receives life from the words of the Rav, misaneg umishtashea kanal, and experiences a tremendous tainug, a tremendous delight. Umishtashea, mishtashea is like in Hebrew, shishua is called a toy. He toys with it, meaning he loves it. He kvels. Mishtashea is he kvels from it. This is the Talmud Muvik, who is completely present on every level, each one of his koiches, all the way up to tainuk, the pleasure. The teacher also is communicating with his whole pnimiyas, the mind and the heart, everything. And in the middle of this hashpa, in the middle of this flow, middle of this encounter, svara yoiser amuka v'chadasha, be'eina roich yoiser nala, misvara hagduma v'azdura loi b'machshavta, ayidei shleimus shal moichin hakoidmim k'niskalel. And in the middle of this hashpa, this, what we described before, actually happens. A svara, an idea, an insight, falls in. It doesn't fall in from outside, it falls in from inside. But it falls into the mashpia, into his mind, a whole new svara, much deeper, and completely new, relative to the earlier ideas that were organized in his mind, which he was planning to teach. As we discussed, sometimes the insight that comes in the middle is not just new relatively, but it could be a leap, a quantum leap from what was previously in his mind, as discussed earlier. This may happen.
Shleimus Hamochem means the 3 reasons he mentioned, but it's Aydei Shleimus Hamochem.
Aydei Shleimus Shal Moichin HaKoidmim was the expression that was used in the Kabbalah about what happens with the Shiva de Nechemta, right? That in the Shlosh of the Puranissa, the Moichin HaKoidmim became complete, so the new Moichin are developing, the Moichin of Atik. That's the Lashon. In the Mashal, what it means here is that if the teacher didn't prepare well, this whole process is not going to be relevant. It's not going to happen. From the teacher's perspective, when he prepared fully. He went through all the stages of the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, the Klal and the Prat for himself, the Klal and the Prat for his student, Azra, Vayisapra, Hechina, V'gam Chakra, then Vayomer La'adam. In other words, the Moichin, the insight, the level of awareness, the cognitive faculties, he tried all his best. It should be as wholesome as possible, according to his capability, obviously. There's always room for growth and perfection, and a year later, perhaps it would be better. But from wherever he is, he was not lazy, he was not indifferent, he was not trying to avoid work. He was completely present. And as we said earlier, that a real shir and a real teacher shows up with all of his 10 spheres, with his chachma and bina and das and midas and behavior, completely and fully present. So the moichin reach a place of shleimus. And that's what he comes with. That's what he comes. He comes with his full mind. He comes with his full heart. And that's what he's giving. He's giving to the student. Because that happens, because there is that shleimus, now there could be a new process which he could not precipitate, which he could not prepare for. And that's the new process discussed, that which happens in middle, with the three explanations explained above why. So imagine the scene. It's actually happening. What we discussed as a parallel is actually happening. It comes in in middle of the shir, this new svara. V'hinei sheyoymar teikef umiyad hasvara achadosha shenoflu lo b'machshavta zeh efshar. On one hand, he wants to right away share it, but he can't. It's impossible for him to immediately share this new svara that fell into his mind as he was talking, or as she was talking. Why do they want to communicate it? It's impossible. Why? It would be like it would be premature. It would be premature birth. Premature birth, especially in the olden days, the baby can't survive, Chalila. The idea can't survive. It's premature. Because the Hamtzah means like the new invention, the new insight, is only felt in the brain of Chachma, in that brain. He didn't even have a chance to what? Yeah, to process it, to differentiate it in thought, even for himself, forget for the other person. As he's teaching this epiphany, this insight, he knows it's something new. He feels it, he experiences it. But to say it now will just diffuse it, it'll kill it. It's mamish premature, you just have a nekuda. That's what Chachma is. In other words, even in himself, it's felt in the Moech HaChachma, which is that brain that experiences an epiphany. It's like that It's a nekuda, it's a seminal point. It's mamish like a seed of life. But a seed of life needs a lot of time and skill and different components to be able to develop. Microscopically, in that sperm, you have a gewaldic amount. You have almost everything, but you need that time and space to develop it. Kiyadua. Yeah. Right. In that new insight. Kiyadua, as it's known, shebeskira klalis, whenever there's a general scanning, meaning whenever you capture the full picture in a general way, yesh adayin chshash hatoyas atzma. There is still the caution, the concern of self-deception. Sheyesh kama havrakos. People have a lot of havrakos. Havrakos comes from the word barak, which means a lightning. Like, you know, that the bulb goes off in your brain, like literally a lightning. The light gets turned on. That's what havraka means. Havraka means in Yiddish it's called an einfall. A blitz. Yeah, literally. It's like the sudden havraka. It's a chap. Like a chap is called havraka. So there could still be, in that state, there could be a lot of deception because there's many different insights people have. Afterwards, when they start specifying it, when they start differentiating it and getting into details, what happens? You start clarifying. So then, nidachim legamri, they completely get rejected. You know how many epiphanies the people have? It's an insight. They say, wait. Let me put it under the the microscope. Let me put it under the flashlight. Even let's look. Let's specify. Let's start developing it. And then you see it's garbage. It's worthless. It's worthless. It's not. It's premature. Ke'inyan, the mashal I just gave a few moments ago, wasn't it? Ke'inyan tipper she'eino higenes she'eino ru'uya lahazriya she'nifla talagamri. The example would be a tipper, which is a sperm, a seed of life. She'eino higenes. From a general perspective, before a person differentiates, it seems like, a child, an embryo can be developed from this, but it's Eina Genes. It's not in that league. Eina Ruya Lazaria. It's not suitable for whatever biological reason to be able to take root. Lahazriya means to be able, like a seed that's going to be able to actually produce. Shenifla Talagamri. It gets spit out completely. Spit out either on a very practical level, on a physical level, it can be absorbed by the feminine counterpart, or spit out in the sense that the body knows right away that there's nothing that the egg can do with this. The egg knows that, this fertilizer is not going to take root. It's just nothing can happen from this. So this is even with himself. You can't go to town with every Einfall, with every Avraka. Not every Avraka is going to win you the Nobel Prize. And even less than the Nobel Prize. Not with every insight. Ooh, I got it. Well, wait. Let's get into the pratim, and then it may be completely rejected. Certainly to say it to a student, this is certainly impossible. Beis mine hachonas bechlal uprat letzorech hamakabel kanal befidush hechina v'gam chakra. To say it to the student requires even more than that. Even after he takes his own chachma and brings it to bina, so now the Einfall, the blitz, the lightning, the epiphany, the invention, the discovery, the insight is developed and embraced and accepted, you still need to go through two stages. That's the Vav and the Hey. You remember there's the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey in order for the student to be able to receive it. Like we explained in the Pasuk. Azra vayisapra, that's the first two, and then there's Hechina, the Gam Chakra from Eiv. He saw it, he told the story to himself, he prepared it and then investigated it. That's the Vav and the Hey. Those are the two preparations that are still necessary after his own preparation vis-a-vis himself, which is the klal and the prat for the student. To be able to draw a picture for the student and then to be able to dissect every detail of that picture for the student. For yourself, you need the forest and you need the trees. Sometimes, in teaching, you see this especially. We're learning now in Gemara about Tumah and Tara of Chanina's Gana Koyanim, and it's a very, very complicated sugya. And what I realized was, when it comes to so many different topics, just as an example, as a marshal, that very often people are taught trees, but not the forest. And when you're just taught trees, not the forest, it can get very discouraging because the trees are endless. So here's a tree, another tree. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you about a third tree. But really, there's also another tree. And there's another tree, and that's how it works. There's this detail. No, but that's only if it happens this way, if it happens that way. And the trees are literally endless. So the person, all I can do is learn that there's another tree I don't know about. Which is what happens, because there's always a tree you don't know about. But what if I can give you a picture of the forest? You may not master all the trees, but there's a forest that you can own. You see it. You see the painting, you see the house, you see the big picture. It's not enough. Seeing the big picture is seeing the forest. Now you got to get to the trees too. But already the trees are appreciated differently. They're in context. That's why we began our Tumah Shirim. I told everybody, before you get confused, I just want you to know that there's only 4 things that can become Tameh in the world. It's not endless. It's only 4 things. And always look at it, the source that gives Tumah, the one who receives it, and how they communicate. You got the whole picture. Now you got to get to the trees. But I'm just trying to give an example. First of all, you need this for yourself. What is the whole picture? Then there's the details for yourself. But now for the student, he needs to go through 2 stages. There's the klal, drawing the full picture, what we're calling the forest. Because if you don't do that, you're not really communicating. To give another detail, no. You need to draw a picture for the child or the student or the disciple or the pupil. And by the way, we're using here words Rav and Talmud, but it's true in every type of communication. whenever you want to present something on any level, give me the picture, that full picture. But just the picture is big and beautiful and grand. Now you have to go min haklal el haprat, from the klal to the prat. Because just giving a student the full picture, you didn't give the real thing yet. You gave the context, you gave the introduction, you gave the foundation, you gave the ability for him or her to feel that they own it, they walk away with something. But now you have to go from the klal to the prat. So even for the teacher himself, after he has a blitz, what's the word when the lightning, what do they call it? A brainstorm, yeah. A flash. So the word flash is the word barak. What happens when it's pitch dark outside? There's no light, literally. You're in a forest somewhere, it's pouring. And then there's a lightning. There's suddenly tremendous brightness. What's the problem? It lasts for a nanosecond or a millisecond or 1 second. Lightning is gone and you're back to the dark. But that's a moment when you get to see everything. And the light is so powerful, the electricity voltage is so powerful that the brightness of that moment can't be surpassed. Well, I shouldn't say can't be surpassed, but it's extraordinary. It's extraordinarily powerful. That's what happens in Chachma. It's like when that flash happens, it can't get clearer. It cannot get clearer. You know what I'm talking about? Huh? It's like an epiphany. It can't get clearer. But 5 seconds later, it's gone. It's gone. Now you need avodah number 2, from the klal to the prat. What will often happen here is you'll say, the seed was a seed, but it can't go any further. Can't go anywhere. It was a great epiphany. It's not going anywhere. No children are being born from this. No companies are being created. I'm not becoming a multimillionaire overnight from this. Maybe next night, but not tonight.
If we dissect every Kiddush, then we're not going to get anywhere. We have to throw out a Kiddush in order to enlighten the world. If we don't have that, then
you have to throw out a Kiddush, but not prematurely. You don't spit out a seed prematurely. You need 9 months. And you need the feminine nurture to absorb it.
It's not spittable out at that point. I mean,
It's not ready. It's not going to do anything.
it's not the form.
There's nothing, you're not going to go anywhere with it.
by putting it out there, you have other people who are going to feed off this Kiddush, who are going to come up with something. If you dissect every single thought you have.
Okay, you may want help in dissecting. You may want help in dissecting.
Eisenhower said of Churchill that he has 100 good ideas. He has 100 ideas a day, and 3 of them are good.
Not bad.
One of them was the tank. They made fun of it, but it took a long time before the military could have fixed that concept and understanding. So I think this may be an example
Yeah.
of that.
So Eisenhower said Churchill has how many good ideas a day?
He said
100 good ideas, 100 ideas, and 3 of them are good.
Yeah, but if you didn't say all those 100 ideas.
He says 100 ideas. Some of them are really loud.
Right. So he may want a chavrusa to work out the chachma. That's fine.
All I'm saying is that if you have those 100 ideas, then you
But to write a paper on it, to give a shiur, to give an authoritative presentation is premature. You may want to converse your chachma with somebody, fine. But not.
It's nice to have like in a business or in a family or something, it's nice to have a time when you just, everybody, we're going to just brainstorm for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just write down ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing.
Right. But nobody's going to invest $10 million in the idea yet, right? When, and how many times does a husband come home, I have an idea. And what does your wife say? Go dreaming, go to shul.
So Rabbi Wildlife, if that moment is lost,
Huh?
if that moment is lost,
Yeah, the moment is lost, yeah.
that moment is lost. On the spot, how can you test whether or not the
That's what we're going to learn about now. Yeah. V'hinei.
Always assume one-to-one relationship, teacher-student. What about like a team effort, brainstorming, so it doesn't exist?
No, of course it exists. We're just giving this model, but it could exist in many models. You're saying, is it only one-to-one? No, of course not.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it works actually very well in one-to-one.
Yeah, it does, yeah. V'hinei Im harav yitcha hamtza zu achadasha. Sheniskira etzla. Lizman acher sheyachshav azbaza. Now you might say he's teaching. So what should he do? He should postpone this insight, this epiphany. He should say to himself, now is not the time for it. This new idea, sheniskira etzla. Niskira means it was just scanned by his brain. He just got this epiphany, this brainstorm that he sees. He should push it off for another time, and that's when he'll think about it. Uke'es lo yirtze lahafs lifsoik chayusoy shel hamakabel sheshemeo misaneg v'yidaber hadrush k'fi sheichin mekoydem. Because he knows that if he doesn't push it off to another time, and he goes there now, what's going to happen? He's going to interrupt the chayas. For the student, this is life. It's not luxury. We're talking about a Talmud Muvik. What's that, a Talmud Muvik? Talmud Muvik is he'll die for this truth. He's completely there. He's not there for entertainment purposes. That's not a Talmud Muvik. That's a Talmud. He comes, he wants to hear Psavart. That's not a Talmud Muvik. Talmud Muvik is the Cholol Reika, the complete empty cavity who is open, puts everything aside, puts his very self aside, just to absorb the truth. The truth that he feels is coming through without any other interest, and therefore he does not want to lose a single word, a single syllable. It's mamish his chiyus, it's his life. So the student, the teacher knows that if he goes off, right? If he goes off with this new amtsah, what is he going to have to do? He's going to have to stop. The chiyus of the makabel, the life force of the recipient who's listening and enjoying, and not just listening, as we said, his full self is there. His koyach hatainug, his koyach haseichel, his midas, his netzachayid yisoid, all behemshich to before. So what happens? So the teacher is going to continue and postpone the epiphany. I'll deal with you in 2 hours. Now, we're in a different mode. I'm teaching somebody. I prepared it. Let me continue. Right, so if he asks a question, he wants to answer. But what if that question unleashes a whole new thing? Right, but it's premature. If it's just a question that's not bringing out a whole new amtsah, may bring out a new sentence, a new insight, fine. But sometimes we're talking what he's put before, amtsah chadasha be'ein aroich. In other words, it's completely on a different league, completely in a different realm. And he himself didn't formulate it. It's just too raw. He doesn't have what to answer yet. He doesn't know if it's true b'chlal. He could be stop confusing himself and everybody else. First he has to do work with himself. After he does work with himself, he got to figure out now how to present it. And there's 4 stages he has to go through. Klal prat for himself, klal prat for the student. So what happens? It can be she'achar kach later. Kshe lisker al oisa hasvara. V'amtzor shenisker etzle b'moiche lachshav baza. Tis'ale mimenu legamri v'tishakach mimenu. This is what happens. He's going to try to remind himself, and he's sure it's there. It's gone, forever. You could say Kaddish. It's lost. That he forgot the idea, yeah. Yeah, cholol reik, when you say emptiness, doesn't mean he's empty. It's a pusta keli. It's very different. Nicht a pusta keli. An open keli. Nicht a...
Very often in some kind of institutions that teach, they want to put your intellect in the box, just put it away. We'll teach you now.
Nah, that's...
that doesn't count.
Yeah, this is not a form of this is not a cult. I'm not talking about a cult.
Brainwashing, the best brainwashing.
Yeah, no. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite from that. Not the idea of a cult indoctrination. Put everything aside so I could just brainwash you and then, yeah, right? And you stop thinking. Then you're not creating a student, you're creating a zombie.
That's very often what happens.
But then the student's not bringing his Caleb and spheres. He's supposed to come in with his Caleb and spheres, but be receptive to the teaching.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, not to come totally empty.
Right, with the emptiness, there's what, pust means empty, right? Pust in Yiddish means empty. There's a pusta keli, and there's an open keli. It's empty, but what do we mean empty? Empty to receive, open to receive, yeah. The Rogatchover Gaon used to say that the hardest day for him is Shabbos. Why? Because he couldn't write. A whole week, he would write constantly, would write very often. And he was a tremendous Baal Hamtzah, tremendous ideas. You could see from his writing, literally every line. It's a new Hamtzah, it's very hard to understand anything. So he said, Shabbos is the hardest day, can't write. So it comes into his brain, and he has no way of holding on to it. So if it would be one idea, 2 ideas, 5 ideas, you're like, wait till Motzai Shabbos. But if it's non-stop, literally 24 hours a day, he said the hardest day for him is Shabbos. So what happens here is, when he wants to remember that svara, Tis'alim memenu legamri, it will be completely concealed, v'sishachach memenu will be forgotten. Why? So you say, well, that's how it is. There's a reason for it. Ki kol gilui oir shenigla me'hamoyer v'loi motza keli lis yashiv bo tivoi likolol b'mekoyre. We all know the experience, but the definition of it is given here, the depth of it. Every gilui, every revelation of light, which comes out, which is revealed from the Ma'ir. Ma'ir means the source, the luminary, like the Ma'ir Hagadol. But it doesn't find a keli, it doesn't find a vessel where to settle. Its nature is to go back and be subsumed and consumed and included in its source. The Ma'ir unleashes a revelation. If it finds a keli where to settle, it can settle. The keli captures it and abducts it and seals the lid, and I have it. But if I don't find a keli where it can settle, it goes back. It goes back to its source. Okay, so but here's what happens. But when it goes back in what we call Or Chayzer, the rebound, the light that returns, it goes back to a deeper place in its source. Because the principle is that Or Chayzer goes back to Kadmusai. Lekadmusai means to its original state. It's even higher and more concealed than it was initially before it came out. That's why the language that's used in Sifrei HaKabbalah or Sifrei Chassidus is not Chayzer L'Tchilasai, it's Chayzer L'Kadmusai. What's the difference? When you say he goes back to the beginning, Chayzer L'Tchilasai, it represents the Saif Shebe'elyon, the bottom part of the source of the Elyon. It's from the more external part of the Kayach HaMaskil. Kayach HaMaskil is that space from where Chachma comes. The Maskil, the source of Chachma, where the epiphanies come from. The Kayach of Hashpah. But when it goes up in a way of Or Chayzer, Nis'ala b'pnimiyas shel Kayach HaMaskil. It is sublimated into the core, into the pnimiyas of the Kayach HaMaskil, shu mitzad hadveikus shaboy l'mekoyre, which comes mitzad its dveikus, its connection, its alignment with its source. Shalachein Amri Razal. That's why the Gemara says in Yuma, Kasha Atika Mechadata. The old is more difficult than the new. Once it came out of the source and it didn't find a keli, and now when it goes back up, it's like the rebound, the Chayzer, it goes back into a deeper place in the Kadmus. Not just Chayzer l'tchilasoi, Chayzer l'kadmusoi.
Which is why you're never able to reconstruct it. Just
Right.
by trying.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
You will not get it. To get that, the old is much harder than getting the new. There'll be new insights, but you want that, it's fafallen. And it's very frustrating. If it ever happened to you, you know how frustrating it is. It's like, I just had it. You had nothing. It had you. It had you, and it's gone.
You say it's because it's not noyetz? It wasn't etched?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. It was not etched in the keli.
No, but I'm saying that if there was his prior statement, that it was noyetz, if he lost it.
Oh, no tchilas and
Yeah,
b'soifa.
it wasn't noyetz. So therefore, it rebounded to a higher place and was lost.
Yeah,
Was that a correct
yeah.
analysis?
I wouldn't say lost, but just it's very difficult to access.
Lost to my consciousness.
Right, lost to my
I think
consciousness.
it's lost.
Lost to my consciousness. Yeah.
You're saying that when a teacher's teaching the student, then if the student does the Choser work, then it becomes more difficult to remember the new thought?
No, he's saying that if the teacher tells himself, let me continue the class, and I'm going to deal with this new insight later because I don't want to stop the flow and the chayus of the student and the tainig of the student. So I'll get back to it later. What could happen is when he wants to remember later the insight, it's gone, it's forgotten. And the reason for that is, although we see it, but the reason for that is, whenever there's a gilui oir from the moyer and it doesn't find a keli, the nature is that it goes back to the mucker.
It has to somehow concretize it, take it.
It has to be concretized.
Into something.
From oir into keli. From oir it has to become keli. And making from oir keli is a radical transformation. It's also a brutal transformation. Oir is more geschmack than keli. Light is not limited. Light is elusive. Light is nebulous. Light is infinite. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. Oir is great. Oir is not a particle. It's not a wave. It's a particle. It's a wave. Because oir has that property. It's much less tangible. Even I'm talking physical light. And physical light is always a metaphor for spiritual light. But even in physical light you see this. Keli is always concretization. The famous Ramban, Hishbati eschem benois Yerushalayim, right? Im ta'iri v'im ta'iriri es ha'ava adsha techbots. In Shir Hashirim, so the Ramban says, you have to take the ava and turn it into a chayfetz, into an object. You have to objectify, what's the word? Concretize. You have to take the ava adsha techbots, turn it into a chayfetz. A chayfetz is an object. Why? Because love on its own is very powerful. There's nothing as powerful, but it's a force. It's a tremendous, powerful force, but it can dissipate. It's like the lightning. At that moment, there's nothing more powerful, but there's no techbots. So whenever oir comes out from the makar, it searches for a keli. If it finds a keli that grasps it, it's in. Not like it wasn't the source, but as much as the keli can get. And then you can work with the keli, you can expand the keli more and more. If there's no keli, what happens? It goes back up, and it goes back up with much greater speed and alacrity than it went down. And it's chayzer likadmusay. Likadmusay means not just chayzer litchilosay. It doesn't just go back to the place where it was. Because the place where it was the soif sheba elyon. It was the lower part of the koyach hamaskil, which was already on its way down. It was ready to trickle from the subconscious to the conscious. Because koyach hamaskil is the place of awareness, but that place of awareness we have no access to. How much awareness is there in the soul? Infinite. How much awareness do we get? Once in a while you get an insight that trickles down from the koyach hamaskil into chachma, and that's the aha. Where did it come from? Yesterday it wasn't there. Where did it come from? You're walking in the street, boom, you got it. You're sitting on the couch, you got it. Brainstorm. What happened? It was there. But a window opens up from the unconscious to the conscious. That's called from Koyach HaMaskal to Chachma. So where it was in the beginning was already in the lower part of Koyach HaMaskal, which is that part that lends itself to come into the conscious. Now when it flies back up on the rebound, it's Chayzer Lekadmusay. It goes to the Kadmus of Koyach HaMaskal, to the primordial, highest parts of Koyach HaMaskal. So the Gemara says, Kosha Atikim Echadata. The old is much harder than the new. Because, what's the pshat? Why? Just because you dealt with it already, it should be much easier. It's already ground that you charted. You already trailblazed it. It's a dirt road that you already went through. The pshat is, because it goes back, it's reabsorbed in a place of not l'tchilosei where it was, but l'kadmusei. Or chayzer l'kadmusei.
How do you get it back? You don't get it back.
When you're ready. When you're ready. When you're ready.
The electron is transferring energy. In physics, the same thing. It's looking for an object to transfer its energy. If it's not able to transfer its energy, it goes back to a higher space closer to the nucleus of the atom. It's the same thing in physics.
What would happen if the teacher would stop? What would happen if the teacher would stop? Tell the student, please remember where we are now. I have to write something down here.
Then you lose the moment with the student.
The momentum.
We'll see. It's a good question. We'll see.
It's a paradox. How do you deal with it?
The mind is it stops it.
It's a machmer sugar. I don't know how to lock it up. It's Or Chayzer. Chayzer Lekadmusay. Yeah. And it's true, this is true, you see it in so many other areas in life. You know, how many moments of inspiration do people have? But there's no keli. And a keli is always brutal because a keli limits. Creates parameters, it's limited, it has a shear. And oir and keli, by definition, are paradoxes. Oir is fully expansive, and keli is all about limitations, narrowing it down, restricting it. You know, it's the concept of tzimtzum. And that's the idea that the keli is always, it's not easy, it's not comfortable. So how many times do people have moments of inspiration or ideas or epiphanies or moments of awareness? And they're real, they're very genuine. Some came out of me, some light, I experienced a light, but it looks around and there's no keli. It has no place to live. So what happens? It goes right back, but it goes much deeper. And therefore the frustration is much deeper. If you would have never experienced that you could have never lost it. When you experienced it, you lost it. And now you want it, you're sure it's there, but you have to now go to a much, much deeper place to find it, because that's the nature of Chayzer. It's like we explained earlier, why the teacher can have such new insights when he teaches, because of the Chayzer. Because when his words go back in, and they fly back in, they rebound from the student back, they go to a much deeper place. If the keli absorbs it, so then it holds on to the oir, so to speak. You're right. The keli means different things in different contexts, but the common denominator of a keli is acha techbats, that there is some. But on one level, chachma is a keli, but not really. Bina is a keli, das is a keli. The blitz, and now you have to make a keli for it. Keli for it means that it doesn't get you, you get it. That's a very different experience. The epiphany, by definition, you'll see that a blitz always comes in a moment when you're not feeling yourself. You're not even thinking about trying to understand it. That's always, you'll never have a moment of chachma when you are present with different thoughts. Chachma always happens in a moment of bittul, koyach ma. You may not realize it, but that moment when the epiphany came in, you were completely glued to this subject. And that's why it could come into you, because you're an empty space. But when you resurface yourself, when you come back to the surface, it's going to be gone. So now you have to structure it within your own structure, within your own faculties. That's what Bina is.
You just said something very, very important, very, very impactful. You said that that's part of what's happening with the teacher, what he said before in explanation number 2.
Number 2, the Archaizer.
The teacher says something and it rebounds back to the student. That becomes his Archozer, which then comes to a higher place and arousing this or something. But that's a very, very important point for the for the following reason. Because in the Maimer, I learned from my Rabbeim, I learned from my friends. There may be a real depth to that Maimer that we're first appreciating, meaning from the teacher and from my friends, I learned from when they taught me, from when they showed me, from when they told me. But what I learned from the Talmidim is not what they then said over. I learned, I looked and saw him. I learned from the process of the rejection, of the recoiling.
Yeah.
So Yoser Mikulam it's qualitatively
Yeah,
superior.
exactly.
It was not a concrete learning they got from the
Right.
Talmud. It's exactly the opposite.
Right.
It was from the Orchos there.
Yeah.
So Yoser Mikulam is a whole different type of
That the Talmud brings forth Yoser Mikulam, a different qualitative light.
I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Then if the Rav has the knowledge and experience, that he has the feeling to build on that.
But that wasn't the experience of Reish Shlokas and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan actually learned. It wasn't just a rebound. Reish Shlokas, his 24 kashas were things that he had to consider that Reish Shlokas knew about.
Perhaps, yeah. It's all types. You're right.
I would say that they're both extreme. That
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rish Lakish asked the questions, and sometimes, as I said, I think earlier in our previous year, questions don't necessarily mean verbal questions. Sometimes it's a facial expression. It's also a question. Sometimes those are the deepest questions. It's like, I'm so confused, I don't even have what to ask. Sometimes you ask the crowd, does anybody have anything to ask? And nobody asks anything. It's not always because they understood. It's like because nobody knows what you're talking about. Sometimes nobody's interested in what you're talking about. Like we have nothing to ask because let's just finish,
So that's a word, that's an unarticulated word.
Right.
Which moves the Rabbi up to a higher level.
Well, depends. I mean, if there's interest. If it's coming from apathy, then it's something else, right?
It's something that happens. It's a function.
Yeah. They say there was a rabbi in a shul, and after 6 months, he quit, he resigned. So the board had a meeting, and they called him in, and they said, Rabbi, did you find that we were disrespectful to you? So he says, no, you were very respectful. Do you not like your salary? No, you gave a very good salary. Did somebody embarrass you in the shul? No, nobody embarrassed. Is your wife not happy here? No, everybody's happy here. So why in the world did you resign? He says, because the first question you asked me in 6 months. So there's some lack of questioning. Nobody asks any questions. They don't care to ask. We're talking about sometimes you notice a question that's coming from kid, but I don't even know how to articulate it. I'm completely confused. So that's a wake-up call for the teacher. You have also this concept, you see it also in people's own emotional growth. There's people who went to who go through different programs of healing, and they become aware of things in their life. And it's very powerful. They become aware of it. But 6 months later, there's no change. Or a year later, there's no change. Even though when they became aware, they swore to themselves, they're never doing this again. They're never going to live like this again. But what was the issue? The issue was, it was an oir. But the keli wasn't there. There was no keli. I didn't really make it part of me. I don't even know how to make it part of me because it's so new. The urge just goes right back to its source. And then I'm back in my rut again. When I go back to my natural self, I'm back, even though I don't want to be. I don't want, but it's, remember, my way of functioning was my instinctive way of functioning. So instinct just goes right back to instinct. It takes a concentrated and sustained effort to reprogram, to be able to take this oil and make it yours. So sometimes people go to, different programs, different retreats, and they have tremendous awareness, and they think that awareness will transform their life. That awareness is good. It's good if it's a beginning, if it's mamish a beginning. In terms of a tachlis, it's worthless. It could sometimes only frustrate. Because if I have no way and no discipline and no ability and no mentorship to be able to to be able to absorb it, then that oil is going to go right back, and it's going to go back to a deeper place, much deeper place.
What if the ore is painful? What if the inside or you don't want it? You want it, you don't.
Oil can't be painful. Oil can't be painful. What may make it painful is my unwillingness to accept it. But that's different. That's a different type of pain. The oil won't be painful.
The process of the work of preparing
Huh?
the candy.
Right.
The inside can't be painful.
An inside could be very painful, but the inside itself is not painful. The inside is truth. If I'm resisting it, that will create the pain. It's the friction that creates the pain. Driving a car fast is not painful. If it collides with something else, that causes the pain. I'll find the key. I'll find the key. I'll find the key. It's fine. He doesn't have to. Huh? I don't know, how long will this take?
The whole idea of this safety, otherwise see if I can open it.
The regular Gemara is there, but the Rabbi's Gemara is probably.
I can get one from the other building. The process, I think, is, I don't know that there's one process, but generally the idea is for a person to be able to look at their day-to-day routines and their instinctive responses and reformulate them and getting the feedback for that.
You can't take it apart. That's a safe to it's safe. It's a safe. Otherwise anybody will take it apart. It's not.
Not every safe is so secure.
It's for
I'll
us
show you
it's
one to
secure.
my house.
It's a mice.
Kennst Lazen zum Seder, huh? Yeah, I think it's really looking at a person's behavior and their routine and day-to-day behavior.
Speaking Thursday night about the medicine, then we'll show it. About to get it, most of the emotions, it's the mind that throws it off, right? It's our mind, so call it whatever, trauma, whatever.
Reb Moshe, can I ask you something? Großen Dank. Can I trouble you for a favor? To go to the 18, the other building, and Blue Psachim 1. There's 3 Psachims. In the front, we're near the Chazan, on the right side of on the left side of the Chazan. Thank you.
On the right side, number 204, you see Pesachim. First Pesachim. It's you don't mind. It's right there. It's number 204. Thank you.
You forgot your Gemara?
No, I just want to have one.
Oh, okay.
I have it on here though.
Ah, yeah, the Gemara. Oh, Art Scroll?
I'll show you.
This is brachas. There's a what? Yeah. About tefillah.
It comes back down, it hits the Galgala, it gets spun away to different places. I can't help comparing this to my mind when he was speaking
Chem?
Thursday night.
Who was speaking? Oh.
When it comes down, it's the mind which is
Oh,
the
takes
mind
it
is
on.
the spinner.
It just ended up in different places.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking now.
Oh, beautiful. Safaria. Great website. Yeah.
Say somebody would say, I want to work on my game. Getting this insight, this epiphany at home or from a Rabbi. How do I better prepare my vessel that I don't lose? Now, we've all had that. We had these blitzes and
Yeah. So
I'm asking if that's an action, in what level it is. Not how I should do it. Is it in the machshava?
Come into the fold.
Is it a mindfulness thing? Is it writing it down?
Yeah, I don't know that there's one rule. I think writing it down, sharing it with people, getting feedback, testing it, doing something about it.
But in this scenario, when you're teaching the class, I'm sure that something comes in and says, I'm not going to touch it right now, but after the class, for the life of you can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd rather
Of course, constantly.
I'm not there for the day
I just had a picture about it on my head. So basically, when a person is in a calm state, and that's one of the prerequisites for meditation.
I like this kind of.
In a way, he's subdued his wavelengths. Like we have a lot of things that we vibrate about, right? All the thoughts creates vibration.
Yeah.
So when he empties his out, he becomes hollow. Means that all this vibration are coming away to steel. That he can actually receive new particles, create a new vibration. So, and that's why the new things that he receives can resonate in a way to push it back. When he pushes back, that actual idea comes from a higher orbit, like much like electrons in the atom. Because electrons have multiple orbits that they can occupy at multiple different spaces. So same thing, it just comes down, and it's because you're quiet, you actually subdued, you're hollow, you're ready to receive. You don't have your own vibration, because your own vibration pushes other particles that cannot come in. That's how we create too much wavelengths around ourselves that we don't able to receive.
Then I started using it.
I have to go through. Maybe I'll prepare the table how the electrons change the orbits. Maybe that will help. I don't know.
Okay, sure, please.
I listened to all 3 hours yesterday in production.
Oh, really?
Never heard it.
Okay.
It's a lot of information to retain, but at least I got a clear overview of what.
A little bit of the forest, not just the trees. Thank you.
The problem is I have only forest.
What? You know, when you got into the trees, it's hard to retain.
I'm afraid of the truth.
Right. Is there a reason for a person to be matar himself? Though he doesn't go. There's no yom tovim. He's not eating kabbalas. He's by himself in a house. There's no fear of him to be matar himself. He can stay tummy. Whatever he eats, he's tummy anyway. It doesn't make a difference if it becomes a sheni or a shlish or whatever.
A person could stay tummy, but Pesach you have to bring a carbon Pesach, so you have to be tahor.
Right, but if it's the middle
Pesach,
of the year,
Shavuos, Sukkot, you have to go to the Beis Hamikdash.
right, but if it's the middle of the year,
A regular Yisrael could be tummy.
there's no problem.
There's no Isra. He can eat Talmudic food. He could be tummy. He could be metame himself. He could touch a mace. Yeah. As long as he knows he's tummy, he's tummy. Yeah. There's no prohibition. A kohen is not allowed to become tummy mace.
Right.
And a kohen has to go to the Beis Hamikdash more often, and he's going to have to stay there a few weeks.
Right. So just for what he does, he has to.
It's a different avoid. But even a kohen could become tummy if he's not going to the Beis Hamikdash, right? But a kohen is a kohen is allowed to be tummy. A kohen is not allowed to come in contact with a corpse. That's the tummy he's not allowed. If a kohen wants to touch a dead sheretz, I don't think he should, but if he wants to, it's not a prohibition. But it's a problem, because a kohen lived from truma. They lived from truma. They didn't have revenue. They had truma, they had maestras.
Oh, just to exist, he has to.
So and truma has to be tired. And carbonus, he has to be tired. He goes with somebody, he has to be tired. So for a kohen, it was just a much higher degree, because that was his life revolved around kedusha, around tara. A regular person,
Wait, let's say till Pesach.
he could wait till Pesach and then become tired. It's fine.
I always thought that.
Unless he has to bring a carbon. I mean, if he's, a zava, a woman who gives birth, a mitzayra, whatever, but he has to bring a carbon. But even that he could, there's certain times. Yeah. But there was a concept of many Yisraelim who were very nizer in Tumah. They were called oichlei chulin betara, meaning even a regular supper, They were not koyanim. Regular, they made sure it's pure. These were called chaverim, Jews who were very meticulous. And the reason is, like we explained in those shiurim, that it's not about if you're allowed or you're not allowed to. It's a sensitivity to a deeper way of living, more alignment between the physical and the spiritual.
So they felt it.
They felt it, or they had some intuition of it, or some awareness of it, or some faith of it. I mean, I'm sure different people on different levels. I'm sure some people feel it, some people don't feel it. Like, everything's spiritual. But the point is that they really wanted to live that life. So it was, the challenge was, in Maseches Chagiga, this is a whole long sugya about Amei Ha'aretz. Amei Ha'aretz were Jews. Tumah and Tara is a lifestyle. And, we learn about it more academically, right? But Tumah and Tara is really a lifestyle. And you have to be trained in it. You really have to be trained in it. Because it's not like a ritual once a day. It's a lifestyle. It's 24-hour lifestyle. It's like you go into a certain, people who have, vegans or vegetarians or meditators, right? It's a lifestyle. It's
Somebody who becomes frugal.
Yeah, good example. A Baal Tshuva, right? It's not just you put on tefillin once or you eat matzah on Pesach. It's a complete transformation.
So it becomes sort of easy. That's like, 'cause we think
you lived it, and you always have to update, and you have to make sure you know the information and all that. But it's a lifestyle, and there were many Amei Ha'aretz who were fine Jews, but it was just too much, and they didn't know, they were unscrupulous, because it's a lifestyle. They weren't ready for it, and because of that, the Chachamim were always afraid that there's tumah. That's why there were many decrees connected with Amei Ha'aretz and so forth, because the reality of it was that they were not so aware, and therefore not so scrupulous about it. So that was a major issue during the time.
They were lower than anybody else. They just,
No.
There was nothing wrong with what they did.
No.
I always pictured Amei Ha'aretz like something like it's not wrong.
No. Well, it's wrong if they're unaware of it. They may not know that they're doing something wrong. If they're unaware.
It doesn't matter because to them
Well,
it doesn't make a difference.
right, but it matters to the kohen who's having contact with them, who's eating their food, who's going to their house. You know what I mean? If I'm a kohen and I go visit your house and I sit down on the couch,
He has to worry that it's
or I'm staying by you for Shabbos and I lay down on your bed, but that bed happened to become tameh from a nida, right? I'm just giving an example.
Even with the Kohanim, I saw Gemara in Yevamis.
Yeah.
There was a Kohen who had a Zaidi in the family. He was a Kohen on Haaretz.
Right.
So he didn't know whether he could take Ulam.
Right.
He didn't know what he could take from it.
Right.
So there's this concept of completely immersed in it. It's hard for me personally. Living these halachas, it's almost as if you have to analogize it to an infection. You're getting. I mean, it's hard to conceptualize about something that is so pervasive.
You're right.
But it's not. I bring that up only to say that it's within a family. You can even come on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Company excluded. You can have different levels.
Of course. Yeah. So I sit down on your couch, I lay down on your mattress, right? That may be a source of tumah. It's called mishkav, a moishav, of a zav or a zav. And just to give one example, that mattress had to go to the mikveh. It didn't, right? Now it affects tumah. I'm just giving you an example. So now they have to know which home am I going into, what's going on in this house. I'm saying these were just all these sensitivities that Jewish life revolved around in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, when Tumah and Tahara was literally part of daily life. That's why there's so many mikvahs, in all the excavations around Israel.
Yeah.
You see all these interesting mikvahs, especially on the way to the Beis HaMikdash when they were traveling. I mean, this was a very common thing. Besides the mikvahs, of course, of the women with Nida, but there was also all the mikvahs for Tahara, for men and women, going to the Beis HaMikdash and so forth.
But actually, you can look at it in a socioeconomic principle, so to determine what one can eat, what he cannot eat, when you can go to Beis HaMikdash, when you cannot go to Beis HaMikdash. You can make it very economical, just business-oriented. This is, I cannot, I can't. So, but you can make it also spiritual.
You're right.
Like everything else has spiritual level.
Yeah.
Socioeconomics.
Yeah. I'm sure for some people, Tumah and Tahara just became another part of the institutionalized socio-economical system. like everything, it can become very, stripped from inner layers, and it's just, this is how it works. This is just.
There's no public, like we have today, Kashas, publications you can read, and there's no.
But they were teachers. There were always teachers. That's how we survive. They're teachers, always teachers.
I always think, the Kashas to us is ABC, and nobody is asking what it is.
Right, but the Baal Tshuva who grew up not on kosher and starts living a kosher lifestyle, it's a very powerful transformation. You can ask anybody who went through it. And your mother tells you you're nuts. Your brother tells you you're destroying the family. And the first Thanksgiving dinner, when you're not eating turkey, because it's treif, right? With, the cranberry sauce. Yeah? Hell breaks loose in the family. Not by everybody, but it's not a simple thing. It's a big Mesiras Nefesh. Huh?
And every chasana and
every chasana and every reception and the Sunday afternoon barbecue and the poolside birthday party for grandpa. Right? You're coming with your tuna sandwiches.
Lots of times very slowly come home, and all of a sudden they can't eat this.
Yeah.
my son won't eat in my house because I'm not following strong.
Thanks. So that's, they come home all of a sudden.
I know. We buy following strong.
Okay. Listen, if your son has to rebel against you, trust me, pray that the rebellion should go that way rather than the other way. Okay? It's a big blessing. In 2019, your son says, only Chalav Yisrael. Thank God. May all fathers have that frustration with nachas. Too much Chalav Yisrael. Okay. We move on now. We're up to Daf Tesvav Amud Aleph, literally the second line from the top, Amar Rish Lakish. Tesvav Amud Aleph, the second line from the top, Amar Rish Lakish. As always, it's important to tune in. It can get somewhat complex, but I think if you tune in, you'll be able to understand everything. Be'ezer Hashem, at least according to our ability, obviously. Let's go back to see the Mishnah inside, because we're going to be analyzing the words of the Mishnah. Amar Reb Meir, in the middle of the Mishnah. After we quoted the testimony of Reb Chanina's Gan HaKoyanim and Rabbi Akiva, and hopefully by now you remember the testimony of Reb Chanina and Reb Akiva, I will not repeat it. Amar Reb Meir, the Mishnah says, Reb Meir said, I'm reading inside, in the Mishnah, Yudalad Amar Aleph, Midivreim labmadnu shesorfen truma Torah matmeya bepesach. From their words we learn that you're allowed to burn impure truma with pure truma, Erev Pesach, when you have to burn chametz, when both pieces of truma are chametzdik, even though it's being contaminated in the fire when it comes in contact with other truma. Amar Reb Yosi said, Eina hi ha-mida. Eina hi ha-mida means, it's not the case. Literally, the words Eina hi ha-mida means you cannot learn this. It's not a right midah. You cannot learn this from their words. It's a wrong comparison. And Rabbi Yossi continues. In other words, he disagrees with Reb Meir. You're not allowed to burn pure truma together with impure truma Erev Pesach. You're not allowed to make a separate fire. Do not bring them together in the same fire. Umaydim Rebbe Lezer Rebbe Yeshua. And then the Mishnah continues. Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Yeshua are Umaydim. Now remember, Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Yeshua's name were not mentioned. They were completely not mentioned yet. It's the first time. But Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Yeshua are Umaydim. What are they Umaydim? They're Umaydim shesorfen zula atzma v'zula atzma. That you have to burn each truma independently. So Rabbi Yossi says, I disagree with you, Reb Meir, and Rebbe Lezer disagrees with you.